We're just getting started here. My name is Susan Schwartz. I'm the program director for Pasadena Education Network. We are a grassroots parent organization that was started in 2006 by families with young children who wanted to learn more about their public schools. And today we connect over 2,000 families and prospective families who are either looking at their options or are looking for ways to engage with their child's teacher or with their schools or with the district. And so tonight, what we're going to talk about is the parent-teacher conference. The Fall Parent-Teacher Conference Day is this Friday, October 18th. But obviously, you can have a conversation with your child's teacher anytime during the year. So some of what we talk about will be applicable to having those conversations at other times. And if you're just joining us, be sure to click on the interpretation. You can go down and at the bottom of your screen, there'll be 3 dots, and it will say interpretation, and then you want to click on the language that you prefer, English or Spanish, and then you'll be able to hear. So let's see. I think I'll go ahead and get started with my presentation, and we'll have enough time for questions. So let's go through a few slides, and then we'll come back together and take your questions. Okay, let's go back to this. All right. Yeah. So let me. Oops. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. So what is a oops, I got somebody in the waiting room. There we go. All right. Hello, Karina. Thank you for joining us. You can choose your language in the interpretation at the bottom of the screen there. We're just about to get started. So what is a parent-teacher conference? Well, the first thing is it's a conversation between the teacher and the child's parents or guardians. And then it's also a chance for coming to a shared understanding. So you both want to have the same understanding of what's expected of your child's learning and development, and also of your child's strengths and challenges. So the key word there is the 2 key words are shared and understanding. You want to be, as much as possible, you want to get to be on the same page with your child's teacher. It's a chance to ask questions about how your child is doing. And it's also an opportunity for the teacher and the family to decide what steps they are going to take together, or each one is going to take to support your student, and what follow-up, if any, is needed. So things may be going along fine and there isn't anything special more that needs to happen, but if there is, this is the chance to sort of come to that shared understanding about what might be needed to support your child. All right. So let's break that down a little bit. You're really, we think of this as the opportunity to ask, what is my child learning? And that's, that's really true. So that is the number one. What are they supposed to be learning? And how is that learning being evaluated? So you may have questions about what is it that the teacher is doing to evaluate how your child is doing. And then another clear question would be, what is my child actually learning? So there's what they're supposed to be learning, and then what they're actually learning. You might also want to know, what are my child's strengths and weaknesses as a learner? And we'll talk more about each of these things. And what can we do to support my child's growth and development? And so you see, again, the key word here is we. It's a team effort. So we're all working together to help your child be successful. Okay. So, but it's a short conference, right? So the time you sign up for on parent-teacher conference day is typically only about 15 to 20 minutes. So to make the most of the time, it's important to kind of think ahead of time, come prepared, and think about anything that that you might want to follow up afterwards as well. So remember, this is not your only chance to communicate with the teacher, but it's a chance to have that face time, to put the face to the name and have a two-way communication in real time. And that can really set the tone for a positive working relationship with your child's teacher. So that's the real special thing about parent-teacher conferences when you're actually meeting. So what we'd suggest you do, and then we'll take you through this in this presentation, is to sort of gather the information you already have. So one way to do that is with things like Parent Portal or Canvas, which would give you information about your child's everything from attendance, grades, and things like that. And I think I'm going to just drop into the chat. Let me see if I can do this. All right, so here are a couple of links for more information about Parent Portal and how to sign up for that, and also how to use the Canvas system. All right, so let's go back to my slides here. There we go. The other kind of information that you have is not just facts about things like grades and attendance, but sort of how's your child feeling about school? So, if there's anything that has come up either just recently or over time, that seems to be an issue, maybe it's just how they're feeling about one of their friendships or something else that is either bothering them or that they're really excited about. So that's also information for you to sort of pull together as you're thinking about how to prepare for the conference. The other thing is also to think about whether there is anything else that you've observed at home that your teacher might need to know to better support their learning or their behavior in the classroom. So it might be something like, what do my child like about school? Could be friends, recess, a favorite subject or activity. Is there anything that's worrying or upsetting my child about school? Anything that they've been talking about that they're anxious about or not happy about? Kind of knowing, how does homework time go? Where does that happen? Who helps with that? Any issues you've noticed? And then there's sort of, other things about your child's life. What is something that your child likes to do when they're not in school? Teachers are very good at kind of getting a sense of who your child is, but they see them in a certain context. They see them in the classroom or they see them on school campus. So there may be other aspects of who your child is that they don't get to see as much. So that's something that you can bring for their information that can help them with establishing a relationship with your kid. Something I like about my child as a person, something I'm helping my child work on. Maybe we're working on not interrupting, or we're working on, if the child's a little older, just kind of staying organized and those executive function skills. And then, of course, if there are any significant situations that might be affecting how your child is feeling at school that have nothing to do with school, but maybe situations at home, like a new baby or a move, a death in the family, any difficulties they might be having with sleeping and eating. So that's the other category of things that you might want to keep in mind or be ready to mention to the teacher, because again, they might not know what's going on at home, and it might be helpful for them to understand how your child is behaving in school. So during the conference, we could sort of spend all day talking about our children, but again, sort of what we really want to know is, how well is my child actually learning? And how well does my child demonstrate or show what they're learning? So sometimes a child may be uh, uh, getting a lot of understanding, but they might not be demonstrating it well. They might not be finishing assignments They might be doing really well on tests, but really poorly on homework, or the other way around. They might be doing really well with getting their homework turned in, but they have test anxiety and they don't do so well on that. Maybe they're good at participating when and putting their hand up when the teacher asks for a show of hands or for somebody to answer a question, but maybe they're not so good at written work. So that's sort of not just is my child actually learning, but what does the teacher see that demonstrates what they're learning, and are there any areas that are where there is inconsistency about that? You want to know if the child is working towards his or her potential. So your child might be doing what is expected of her, but maybe needs a little bit more challenge, a little bit more stimulation, or they may be doing just needing some extra support to get them to where they need to be. You might want to ask about your child's strengths and weaknesses as a learner, and by that I mean not just oh, they're good at math, or they're good at asking questions, but more like sort of how do they learn? Are they good at getting help when they need it? Are they uh, maybe they're very good at getting the right answer, but they need to work on showing their work, showing how they got that answer. It may be social emotional things and sort of how they're working with other children in the classroom. So that's something to ask about, I think, is what are their strengths and weaknesses as a learner? And you might have some idea about that, but the teacher will have a different idea. And between the two of you putting your perceptions together, that's really what the goal of the conference is about. Are there any particular areas, any particular skills where they need to work and close a gap? And then I think the other thing that you can ask about is sort of how is my child progressing, compared to others in the class. And you can break that down. Boys maybe, especially at a young age, may be doing a little differently than girls tend to be doing at that age. If your child is an English learner, has special needs or an IEP, the comparison may not be to the class as a whole, but to a group within the class. And really, again, the purpose of this is just to see if there's anything in particular where your child could use any extra support. And it could be the teacher says, they're doing great. We don't really need to worry about that. But again, if you have concerns, if you have worries, if your child has seemed to be anxious about something, that's a good time to bring that up. Like, I'm glad that he's doing well, but I'm a little concerned about this. So that's an opportunity as well. If I have this slide for clarifying questions. I think teachers are usually pretty good during when they're meeting with a parent to explain what they're talking about, but there are a lot of acronyms, there are a lot of special terms that are used in education. So if the teacher uses a word or mentions something that you're not familiar with, ask her or him to please explain or give an example. And do not feel like, oh, I should know this, because if you don't know it, you don't know it. Just ask. Teachers appreciate people who ask when they don't know instead of not asking. So, what else? Okay, so other things you might want to try to figure out together with the teacher. Are there any things that are obstacles to my child learning or making progress? And that could include behavioral problems. It could be that your child is stressing over something happening at home or at school. We're not getting enough sleep. We're not eating breakfast. I mean, there are a lot of things that can affect how well your child is able to function in the classroom. And it could be something that's a very simple thing and maybe a very simple thing to fix, or maybe it's something a little bit more complicated. But again, this is an opportunity to sort of explore whether there's anything that might be getting in the way of your child doing as well as they could be doing. You might also want to ask if there's anything, particularly for younger children, that seems not typical. So are there any issues that the teacher has seen in the first few weeks of school that suggests they may have some something where they need some special accommodations or some additional supports or resources in terms of the kind of learner that they are. And I want to make it clear that it's not like you have to ask all these questions, but these are sort of the range of things that may be at play. And if there is something, this is something you would want to explore with the teacher. Excuse me. And if there are factors that are obstacles to learning, or there's some atypical learner issues, then the question is, what strategies or resources are available to support that? And they may be strategies that the teacher is already using or has access to, and they may be things that the teacher can direct you as a family to access. And so be sure that if there is something, bring something to write with, make a note. What's the next step? When and how are we going to follow this up? Ooh, okay. We often think about meeting with the teacher to talk about academic work, but obviously much of what happens in every part of our life, but certainly at school, is also about social emotional well-being. Right. So that's something that teachers are aware of, and sometimes the issue with learning is not about your child's intellectual ability, but just a situation that may be causing some stress socially or emotionally. So that's also something that could come up in a parent-teacher conference. Okay, so main takeaways. I think you want to come away from the conference with an idea of, what is one thing my child could do to get stronger or better at something? For example, they may just have a very fixed idea of what kind of student they are, and they just need to develop more of a growth mindset. So for example, some kids, if they've been told a lot of the time that they're really smart, they may be afraid to try things that they don't know how to do. And that can be a barrier to their growth. On the other hand, if a child feels, has the idea in his or her head that they're not good at something, then that could also be a barrier. So that might be something that even if your child is basically doing fine in terms of what the teacher expects, they can always, there are always ways to improve or kind of think about how they could grow as a person, as a student in the course of the school year. And maybe you just want them to be happier. Maybe they worry a lot. I have two daughters, and the older one was a worrier. So how can we help her stop worrying so much was always the question. What will the teacher and the school do, or what are they already doing to help with that? And what is something I can do as a parent? And are there any resources that you can recommend to me as a parent? So I think if you were to just take 3 things away, and we'll share the slides, so you don't have to be writing all this down, obviously, but that would be these are the 3 big takeaways from your conference. And as I said, if there's anything that needs to be followed up, just make some notes, make sure you're clear. What are the next steps? Are we going to check back in? Is there something we need to follow up? And it's really always a wonderful idea to, if there's something really concrete that needs to be followed up, it's a great idea to write a short email to the teacher, just summarizing your understanding of who's doing what and what the timeline is when we are going to check back in. So then that way, if there's anything that you misunderstood, they see it in writing, and they can say, oh no, what I meant was this, or yes, now we're both on the same page about what's going to happen next. And that is really it for my presentation. So I am going to stop sharing. I will ask, we'll spend some time with any questions you might have, or anything else you would like. But I'm gonna stop my screen share at this point, and I'll put these participant surveys links in the chat as well, because we always appreciate getting feedback. And And so at this point, we're a small group tonight, so I will open it up to you if you have any questions or thoughts or just anything. What's on your mind? Just you can just unmute and chime in.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Hi, Karina. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks. I just wanna mention that for me it's been very important that at the time of the parent-teacher conference for every single teacher, my daughter or the student be with me, so
Mm.
the student can listen to what the teacher is saying and also can listen to what the parent is saying as well.
Mm.
It really works. Well, in my talking about my experience, that really works. And every single year, my daughters are with me with the teacher, with every single teacher. So
Mm.
the teacher knows that we are in the same page,
Mhm.
And then the teacher won't be able to see, oh, well, your mom said this, but it didn't, so because we don't know. And also the student can be more involved as well as the parent, and then the student um, knows that the parent is involved and also aware of whatever is happening in the classroom,
Mm.
as talking about behavior and class work or syllabus and all that. So that really, really works for me. And I'm being happy so far about parent teacher conferences. And also, it really works that being communication with teacher. Email is better. They always answers. Every single teacher always answer email to me,
Uh-huh.
so that really works. To me, it's very important that for the excellence or satisfactory part on the grading um, card, on the report card.
Mm-hmm.
I also let them know that please don't leave that blank, because every time they leave it blank, they put an S, and that means satisfactory, and I don't like it like that, because if my child is excellent, I want to see that E as an excellent. So that really counts,
Yeah.
because at the time when they apply for scholarships, there's some scholarships that are also available for excellent students. So that works. I
And
know.
you have, so I'm just sharing, you have now a student who is in sixth grade, I think, your youngest.
Yeah, my younger student is my daughter. Yeah, she's barely starting middle school, and she's
And you've
doing
had two
great.
older daughters who've gone all the way through and are out of high school, right?
Yes, my
Okay,
my
so this is
oldest
Karina
daughter.
with the voice of experience here. That's what we're saying.
I know I'm a very old parent, but I've been learning a lot, and I know everything that really works at my point of view. And also, um, I've been dealing with the teachers so far, because I'm behind. I'm behind them. They haven't sent me the links for the parent teacher conference last week, so I emailed them and I asked them, are they going to be available? But they might not. So we arrange a different day because they're not available on the 18th, which is the formal day.
Right.
Uh,
Sometimes the conference
yeah,
isn't that day. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, being in communication with this uh, teacher really, really makes a big difference, and it really works. So far, everything is good. So far, I've been asking them about grades and everything, even if they don't post it. Um, they will post it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
I
know.
wanna just jump in. We have a question in the chat from someone else who has a TK student. And
Thank you.
actually the TK conference day is November 1st, interestingly enough. So, but as you say, sometimes your actual conference might be at a different time than on the official day. That's just sort of the typical. So Michelle had a question about whether that's a good opportunity to ask about curriculum. And so from a child of 4 or even 5, sometimes you're not really hearing so much about what they're learning, or it's hard to tell what they're learning, perhaps. Um, I feel like, some of that, typically that information you get at back to school night, a little bit of an overview of what the child is going to get. I don't know if it's different from TK to kinder, and I think it may vary a little bit from school to school, what the expectation is as far as so Michelle, do you get any kind of um, packet or communication from the child's teacher about what kinds of things they're covering from week to week? Because sometimes that's a way to just get kind of at least some idea.
Um, we get a monthly PDF.
Okay.
Month of September, it was focusing on more social emotional learning. Sorry, one second.
Right.
Sorry, I got a
Okay.
full house and it's bedtime. Sorry, give me one second. Um, no, darling, get ready for bed. Choose a book you want to read. Sorry. Um, so the first month, I think, from what I could gather, it was really focused on social emotional learning because for a lot of kids, it's the first time they're going to school.
Yeah.
The second month, or for the month of October, it said that they're focusing on architecture and shapes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she sends us weekly pictures, but
Uh-huh.
when I go onto the school site, they have a curriculum, but it's K through 5.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
like a lot of information on what's being learned K through 5, but I feel like since TK is still so new,
Yeah.
there isn't that clear roadmap. And furthermore, my son's in a dual immersion program, so it's wanting to support whatever he's learning.
Yeah.
Mom,
Yeah.
sorry. What? Oh, I'm sorry, darling. I'll fix this later. It's okay. Sorry.
It's that time
Um,
of the evening.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, and the someone else had asked a question about the dual language and what to expect. So I do think that with especially with very young kids, the teacher conference time is a good chance to just usually, I think, often the teacher will have prepared like a little bundle of a sample of your child's work on different things, whatever that might look like, at that grade level. So they usually will show you some examples of what your child is doing, and it's a perfectly good opportunity to ask, to learn a little bit more about what they're doing beyond what you may have gotten in a packet that came home for the month. And TK is a lot less of an academic year and much more. I mean, they're getting the groundwork, a lot of pre-literacy and a lot of things that they're going to build on for their academics. But it is much more play-based. It's more, in terms of things like math, it's much more about shapes and manipulatives and not as much the kind of thing that you might, get tested on, let's say. So, but yeah, I mean, I think if you're just trying to get a better sense of what it is they're doing in the class, that's definitely something that you should look for at the parent teacher conference. Um, but I also wouldn't worry about it too much either. I mean, it's sort of for they may be able to say, hey, you might just say, look, there's a lot of information out there about what the curriculum is for grade K through 12, but is there something that I can look at to just sort of see what the standards are for TK? And they may be able to point you to that. Rather than take up the whole time going into what the academic standards are for TK, you might want to talk more about how is my
Yeah,
child doing in terms of the social emotional? How are they,
that's
how's
what me and my husband were leaning towards is how is he doing? And also how is his How is he picking up the foreign language? How does he feel with it? Because some kids they get frustrated, other kids think it's a new environment.
Yeah.
Those
Have you, I mean, I think some of that is, you know, I mean, that is a perfectly valid question to ask. And some of it may be, you know, if you have noticed something, you know, if you find that your son is saying, you know, seems to be frustrated or anxious or anything like that about the language part of it, you know, if there are things he said to you, that might be something that you could share. And the teacher might say, yeah, that's really common at this point in the year, but give it time. Or they might say, well, let's see what we can do about that to help relieve that anxiety. So you know, I think it is really a conversation. It's kind of about bringing things you've noticed about the way your child is behaving, and sort of then having them give you some, you know, both like, okay, that's helpful for me as a teacher to understand that. And also here I can help give you some context, like that's normal at this age. I mean, I remember when my first grader was still flipping her lowercase letters, her B's and D's, you know, would be going all different directions all the time. And, you know, and the teacher said, yeah, that's something she needs to work on, but that's a normal thing for someone her age to be working on. So yes, and also don't worry. So I think it's good. It's a good opportunity to put things in context.
yes. Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The first parent teacher conference. We had one in preschool, but
Mhm.
it was more of 10 minutes. The kid's doing great. That's it.
Yeah. And you know, honestly, at this very early age, you are probably, I mean, and others can jump in if they have a different thought about this, but I think I heard somebody say about preschool that what's most important is for the child to have a positive experience of school.
Mhm.
And, you know, what they actually have learned at this stage of life is less important than that, because this is just sort of setting the stage for a positive experience as a learner. And I think if nothing else, you know, that whole idea of growth mindset, not I'm good at this, I'm not good at this, but rather I'm getting better at this, I'm learning this. Learning means you make mistakes and then you learn something, you know, it's so I think those kinds of you know, how they're developing those attitudes towards school and towards learning and towards the social, you know, world of school is probably the most important thing at this age.
In that way, I guess I feel lucky because he goes to Jackson
Mhm.
and the TKers in his class, they play in the garden, not a garden, but like where the trees are, they all play together and they run together and they say each other's names and they're
Yeah,
excited. So it's very sweet.
that's good. Can't ask for better than that. I have
Yeah,
a 24-year-old and a 29-year-old, and when they're happy, I'm happy. I don't care what else is going on.
yes.
Anybody else have any questions or comments or anything at all? I have a question for you, Karina. You mentioned that you would have your girls come with you to the parent-teacher conference from the very beginning, even in elementary school. And I know that it's not uncommon in middle school for the teachers to set it up for it to be a parent-student teacher conference. But I think that may be a little less common in elementary. Did you ever have a teacher who said, no, I want to just talk with you and have the student not be right in the room while we're talking?
No, never, never at all. And
Okay.
also they were happy. They were
Uh-huh,
happy. So the student was there with us. So
uh-huh.
can the student listen as well? And they were happy actually. They never say anything different.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think, you know, anything that I would just say that, you know, teachers are people. They have some practices that will be common uh to most teachers, but they all may, you know, have their own way of doing things as well. So if you were to suggest to the teacher, I really want my child to be there, and they had some, you know, they might say, well, I'd like to some time where we can just talk together, and maybe we can do part of the time with the child there and part not there. But I mean, I just want people to be prepared for the possibility that teachers are going to also come to this parent-teacher conference process with whatever their own idea is about how they do it. And you can ask, you can always say, I'd like to do this. And you know, I think most of the time they will try to work with you. And they may find that that's beneficial. But
Yeah,
it's,
and also even if it was a meeting virtually, they were still right next to me. You know, my daughter, it was still right next to me, and the teacher never said anything. They would say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And they thank you. You know, yeah, they were
yeah,
happy actually.
that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let me, so I've got Amy and Rami and Zain. What grades are if you're able to chime in or type something into the chat, what grade or grades are your children? Okay, maybe not able, oh, there we go, TK and preschool. Oh my goodness, just little ones. Okay, great. Well, you're getting ready early, and that's great. So, I think, you know, kind of what I said earlier to Michelle about, her point about, you know, there's what they're doing in terms of their development and their academic learning, but it's probably, you know, at that age, it is more about you know, just learning how to be in a group and kind of whether it's as much about their attitude towards being in that school setting and themselves as a person who is learning new things is probably the most important thing. Yeah. That is all I have. I will go ahead and put my email in the chat, and I will send out the slides so that if anybody, you'll be able to see the slides, and if anybody has any questions, either about this or something else, you have my email. Thank you so much. And thank you to Ada, our interpreter. Thank you so much. Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah, so so that's about it. We're all done. Thank you.